Good blessed this Sunday morning, June the 27th, the time being about 11:07 a.m. I'd like to greet all human beings all around the world with a universal greetings of peace and the blessings of God be with you. It doesn't matter what your political, philosophical, personal, nor your religious beliefs may be. It doesn't matter if you're the richest to the poorest person on the face of this earth. It doesn't matter whether you are the proclaimed toughest to the proclaimed weakest person on the face of this earth. It doesn't matter if you're my family, friends, nor my proclaimed enemies. It doesn't matter whether you are dark-skinned or light-skinned. It doesn't matter what your nationality is. It doesn't matter whether you like me nor my social, any of my social internet videos or anything that I put on social internet. I greet all of you all with that same universal greetings. Don't let nobody tell you that I'm racist. Don't let nobody tell you that I'm a militant. Don't let nobody tell you that I only care about one thing. Before I got to fighting for justice for my son, I fought for justice for other people's sons, daughters, and mothers. But today, what I want to talk about, y'all, today, June the 27th, 2021, make 100 days, y'all, that my son, Bryan Lamar Johns, was found hung, allegedly found hung on that day. I don't believe nothing the Carbondale Police Department tell me anymore. They allegedly found him hanging on March the 19th, 2021 in the 400 block of Oakland Street in Carbondale, Illinois, in the Gaslight apartments there on the corner of Oakland and Sycamore Street on the 3rd floor. But I just want to show y'all something first before Satan try to take over. This is something one of my neighbor's sons, he always there for me and my children's. He made a poster for me, Justice for Bryan Lamar Johns. Rest in peace. Date of birth, September the 27th, 1975. Alleged date of death, March the 19th, 2021 rather. There goes some of the pictures of him, y'all. Go one of the obituaries that was made. I had this one made down here. His mother and them had one made in Chicago too. This is a t-shirt that my oldest daughter had a Spanish brother up there in the Windy City make this shirt for me in loving memory of Bryan. Rest in peace, my son. 1975 to 3/19/2021. My oldest daughter had one of these made for her and my other two daughters and her four children's, my grandchildren's. You know, in loving memory of you may be gone, but you will never be forgotten. Bryan. That was real thoughtful of my oldest daughter, and I appreciate my oldest daughter and my other two youngest daughters and my daughter's children's for all that they've been doing since my son's death, their brother and their uncle's death. But I want to get back to something, y'all. Today make 100 days now. There's no newspaper in Carbondale, Illinois. You got the biggest one over there, the news outlet, the Southern. You don't have no newspaper or no social internet that been putting my son's death on a video like I'm doing or mention it, with the exception of a couple of groups that I joined in Carbondale. But now you tell me this here. It's been 100 days that they claim that they found my son hung. Now, I'm going to tell you, before me and my son's mother and my two youngest daughters and my son's mother, other son, her oldest son living now, my son was the oldest of both of our children. Before we made it down to Carbondale, Illinois on March the 24th, 2021, allegedly 6 days after my son was found dead. When we got down there, we met with two individuals. An individual that said he was a commanding lieutenant. He was a commanding investigator. Let me get his card out here. I want y'all to see his card so you won't think that I'm just giving you somebody's card. Can y'all see his card real good? Carbondale Police, Matt Dunning, Investigation Commander. He said his title is a lieutenant. I met with him. Then I met with a coroner for the lieutenant. For the Jackson County medical examiner's office. Well, not even medical coroner's office. He didn't have a card. This is all he gave me was Sam Bryan, spelled the same name like my son's first name. I want y'all to keep them two in mind. Now, I met with them, and they had my son's mother. She was breaking down in tears. And this is what they liked it. They had made up their mind. Listen to me now. They had made up their mind already. There hadn't been no autopsy done. And once you listen to me, you will see they didn't have no intentions on doing the autopsy. Their intentions was to cremate my son and to deem his death suicide. If you heard the way these people was talking to me and my son's mother, I had to tell her to leave the room. They tried to take out the room to the outside where my two youngest daughters was in my vehicle and my son's mother, son was in their vehicle. But I told them I'll walk out. And I see why they wanted to walk out. When they walked out, the alleged person that said he was the coroner, I found out he was a deputy coroner. This is what he told her by herself, whispering to her. You see, in the Quran, Muslims is taught about the whisper of evil. They whisper in the ears of mankind, then they withdraw after they whisper. He whispered and then he withdrew. That's what he told her. He said, Raymond's name ain't on the birth certificate. Why don't you do the talking? Now, why would you ask a person to do the talking when you see that they can't handle this mentally? But you seen a black man, no matter what you said, you didn't break me down because I know my son didn't commit suicide. Then you further told her, instead of taking him back up to Chicago, the deputy coroner said, I know a funeral home, not the one he's in now, right now, but I know a funeral home that would cremate him for real cheap. This is what he whispered to her. That's the devil, y'all. The devil working for the Jackson County, Illinois Coroner Department. Sam Bryan, Bryan. Yeah, I call him a devil. The chief of police, Stan Reno, said that my son had demons in him. I think they got demons in him. Because what he said, that's something that a demon would do. Suggest to a mother who grieving the death of her son to not only don't let the father speak up, but also to burn the body. If you burn the body, then whether they took a toxicology test or not, which it wasn't back yet, on day 6 of my son's alleged death, then no autopsy was taken, and they didn't have no intentions on taking an autopsy, because if he was, he wouldn't be talking about burning the body. because the autopsy hadn't been taken. But she told him to talk to the daddy. And he seen I wasn't going for it. So we went back in there. And he tried to convince me. He told me, he even told the mother. He said, it's a suicide. And Matt Dunning, the investigator commander, y'all seen his title, investigator commander. So he's over all the investigators in Carbondale. He said, I asked him, what did he specialize in? He don't specialize in nothing. You see what I'm saying? Because he probably don't have the training for nothing. He just got the title. You see what I'm saying? He said he does it all. You see, one thing about an investigating detective, you either homicide, robbery and homicide, burglary, rape. You see what I'm saying? Retail theft. But you do it all. But we're going to leave that alone for right now. Now, I'm going to show you how they had determined already, and still 100 days later, all they focusing on is suicide. Because if they felt it was suicide, why haven't you been closed the case? You said after the toxicology test come back, this is the commanding, the investigator commander, Matt Dunning, and the deputy coroner who identified himself as the coroner, Stan Bryan, if that's his name, because he didn't have no ID, but he took the IDs of me and my son's mother and took down the information off of that. But he didn't produce nothing, but I remember how he looked. But anyway, him and the commanding investigator told us that it is suicide. Said he went to the hospital on the 11th, told him he wanted to hang himself. He went to the hospital last year, I think in June or July, and told him he wanted to kill himself by jumping off a second floor roof. And then on the 11th of June of March of 2021, he told him that he wanted to commit suicide by hanging himself. How convenient. When I talked to the people that was there, when the police came to the Good Samaritan house, the homeless shelter in Carbondale, Illinois, who countered what they said, one of them told me that she told him to say that so he can get inside. To get inside of the hospital so he can get admitted, so he can get help for his drug habits. But let me show you how they decided already there was suicide. They said if the toxicology test come back with him having drugs in his system, then it would be ruled suicide due to drugs. If he didn't have no drugs in his system, it would be suicide due to mental health. If that's the case, why have 100 days went past, and when you already have the toxicology test back saying he had a high doses of methamphetamine, which we didn't question, we didn't even think that he wouldn't have had that in him, a high quality of methamphetamine in him, and some antidepressants in his system. So you don't need nothing else. Why don't you just rule it suicide? You don't want to because you seen he got a black father that went on the crime scene and made a video on the same day that I seen y'all. And then all of a sudden, that was on the 24th of March. Then all of a sudden on the 25th of March, here's another sergeant. They got all these ranking individuals. Let me get his card out where you can see him. Let me see if I can see this here. Can you see this here? Jarin, Jarin, Dunning Sergeant. He's the leading detective, investigator detective on the scene. This other individual sergeant, Guy Draper, is the one that took me on the scene where they found my son's body at. Guy Draper, he's everywhere. He was the first one, came with the paramedics in the corner When my son was hung, you could see him in the background once we get the pictures, when they was taking the pictures of him when he was hung. Guy Draper was there on March the 11th, 2021, when the Samaritan House called the police because my son was scared to go out in the streets. He wanted to go get help so he can get admitted to the hospital and get away from that place in that area. And Sergeant Draper and another officer came, and my son, the people said, appeared to be afraid of them. He didn't want to go with them. They took a pipe that he had, I guess that he smoked this methamphetamine with, crushed that. I don't know what they did with the drugs, probably gave them to their snitches so they can set up somebody else and murder them. But he wouldn't go with them. Why wouldn't he go with this sergeant and his other companion, his other co-worker? But when they called the ambulance, he went with the ambulance people with no problem. Now, this guy Jared, he assigned himself to my son's case on the 25th. How coincidental. On the 25th, it was the day after I made a YouTube video letting it be known that I didn't believe my son committed suicide. I didn't really say I didn't believe. I said I know my son didn't commit suicide unless you could show it to me on video. And then, so coincident, on the 25th, this coroner this pathologist, female pathologist that the deputy coroner told me that was from Carterville, found out she's from Vienna, Illinois, and she's independent, but this same guy that's doing the investigation told me she's real good. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know she good because she going along with everything y'all saying. You ain't telling her everything. How did she come to the same conclusion that y'all came to, that my son committed suicide and y'all hadn't even done an autopsy? But she allegedly did the autopsy on the 25th of March 2021, and that's the day that the sergeant assigned himself. Now, check this out. My son has about 869 Facebook friends. One of his friends, I'll just initial him as BK. In parentheses, BK had his full name, but I'm just going to say BK. But he had, in parentheses, Joker. And so happened my son on March the 8th, 2021, 11 days before they allegedly found him hung, he was mentioning the name Joker. He was into it with somebody by the name Joker. And my oldest daughter allowed this detective that assigned himself, he said he had a good rapport with Facebook, but yet he asked me to ask my oldest daughter in Chicago, would she let him get her password so he can get on my son's Facebook page and retrieve those videos. I thought he was doing it to try to single out who might have took my son's life. He took 14 videos, y'all, and he got them in the month of March, I think, no later than April, and he ain't watched all them yet. But it was a key thing that he did on there with two individuals. Both of them have the nickname Joker. One of them was on my son's page, and he go track down this Joker. He said he knowed him, BK. But guess what? He told me, that Joker, I know he's a small guy. I doubt if he did anything. He used drugs. I can tell that he's telling the truth. But guess what this Joker, this Joker said he met my son one time. And that's when he gave my son a ride somewhere, and he never seen my son again. Now tell me how much you will believe this after I tell you this here. He picked up my son one time, never seen my son again, didn't know him. All he did was gave him a ride somewhere. You got a hell of a memory, Joker. But then look, mysteriously, when the detective that's supposed to be doing his investigation, when me and my daughter and them give him information, he go give it to the individual that we might suspect of doing something and tell him what he got off the face. Why is you on his Facebook page? He said, I'm not his friend. But it was evidence. We know he's his friend, but guess what he did? And the detective probably told him to do it. Delete your name off of there. And that's exactly what happened. He deleted his name off of my son's Facebook page, but he did something else. If you call Killer or Joker, you ain't finna change that nickname. He done, on his regular page, he done took off Joker in parentheses. That's a red flag. But let me tell you about the other Joker. My son was arguing, was saying he wanted to fight with this one Joker that been jumping on, Joker been jumping on his own girlfriend. My son told him to come out and jump on me. He was calling this guy out. Now, the detective that put himself on the case, he tracked down this Joker. And he seen this stuff on my son's Facebook page because my daughter let him get the videos. Now look what he go to this Joker and tell him. He said, did you and Bryan get into it? Now Bryan is dead, so Bryan can't say nothing else. But Bryan said it when he was alive, and the detective said it out of his mouth that Bryan flagged down two Carbondale, Illinois police and told them that somebody was trying to do something to him. But this detective can't remember who them police is, but he can remember who Joker is, and then go tell me what Joker said. The Joker said him and Bryan did get into it about a bike that Bryan supposed to stole, but everybody else that I talked to said Bryan didn't steal the bike. I asked him, did the guy Joker make a police report? I said, did the police document Bryan stopping them and telling them somebody trying to do something to him on March the 8th, 2021? He said, well, since Bryan didn't call the police, it wouldn't be documented in there. I said, it don't have to be documented in. If I flag down the police and ain't called them and flagged down the police and said it's a police laying there with 10 bullets in his head, is you going to document that? I think you will. And no disrespect to any police that's not corrupted, because you got plenty of them that are, and you got plenty of them that's good. But he can't find these two polices. You know what he finding? He found something, showed me. He said, well, we got many calls concerning Bryan. We had one. Now, this will go back to June or July of last year, so they can try to say that he had suicidal tendencies, brother. Y'all forgive me. I'm upset. But he said we had a cause of him being on the second floor of a building, and I said, what was he trying to do? He said he defecated on the building. Defecated on the building. Do that have anything to do with suicidal tendencies? Now, last year, remember they said that he said that he wanted to jump off a second floor building out of a second floor window. So when he was defecating, allegedly defecating up there, which I don't know if that's documented or not, might be. But if he was defecating on there, why didn't he jump then? Then on the 11th of March of 2021, when they claim he went to the hospital saying that he wanted to hang himself, but the lady at the center that don't work there no more, she said it's a lieutenant that's doing the investigation. He hadn't talked to her damn time. The other lady that still worked there, he haven't talked to her damn time. He sent a juvenile detective investigator, a juvenile, my son 45, a juvenile investigator who normally deal with social work for the juveniles, sent her there. She talked to both of these ladies one time. One of the ladies was trying to call him back. She never called him back. But let me tell you why they didn't call him back. Because this one lady that don't work there no more, she said she told the detective. She said Bryan was not suicidal. The other one told him too. Both of them said that he was afraid to go with Sergeant Draper and the other police officer on March 11, 2021 from the Samaritan house. He was afraid to even go outside. But yet they still trying to track suicide. She said she told the detective, I know I can lose my job. She was still working there. She said, but I told him the only way that you can get in that place is you tell him that you want to commit suicide. So now they trying to use those two things to say that he was suicidal. But if that's the case, going back to the 24th of March, when the commanding investigator lieutenant from the Carbondale Police Department, don't know how he got that title, and then the deputy coroner who identified himself as the coroner for the Jackson County, Illinois, coroner's office, if you said clearly to me and my son's mother, it's either one or two things, it's going to be suicide, nothing else. I made him specify that. I said, so you ruling out homicide? He said, yes. If you're ruling out homicide, why is it still an in-depth investigation 100 days after my son's death? Let me tell you why. Because y'all done let me see enough stuff. You thought I was an ignorant Negro. You see what I'm saying? You thought my son didn't know nobody. I'm not a licensed investigator, but I do this for a living. You better check out RRR, Raymond Research and Recovery. Because I done did my research on y'all just like y'all done did on me. If you allow the individual dispatcher for the Carbondale Police Department who was suspected of killing Molly Young, if you done allowed him in the apartment with a body that been shot in the head, you allow him to clean the gun, you allow him to take a shower, you allow him to even wash his clothes. But he worked for the Carbondale Police Department. To the best of my knowledge, his dad worked for the Jackson County Sheriff Department. y'all getting the picture? Whoever murdered my son, they got connections with these people. Now, I'm gonna leave it with this here. 100 days later, y'all, I'm finding more stuff than the people is found. The investigators have found. I done found a female that has his wallet. And she said when she found it, it was about a week or a week and a half after my son died. Do I believe her story? No. She told me wasn't nothing in the wallet. Whether it was something in there or not, I don't really care. All I care is if she got the wallet and you had something to do with what happened to my son, that's a whole different thing. Because I know she was on drugs. She admitted she was on drugs. She admitted her and my son got high together. But ain't it kind of strange? She found his wallet sitting on the stairs right by apartment where she used to stay at, and my son stayed with her before. A white female got a black boyfriend in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and then I got another black one somewhere else, and she said all of them is violent. I don't care how violent anybody is. If you had something to do with my son, you do not scare me. I'm going to tell you something that my mama used to always say. So I'm going to tell my children and all my other family members, when you hear my home going, don't you worry about me. You see, I'm just a soldier and a warrior on my way home. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to keep on, y'all. When you get tired of listening to this here, stop listening to it. But the Carbondale Police Department, the Jackson County Coroner's Department, and whoever else, y'all covering it up. But 100 days later, you would think some news outlet would at least hear my son's dad's voice, since it's a death investigation now and not apparent suicide. But he was a black guy that was homeless, got 869, it would have been 870 friends on his Facebook thing until the investigating lieutenant that a sergeant that put himself on the job went and told this guy, and he removed his name. But I remember, and I still got his picture. You see what I'm saying? And I looked up his family last name, and they have law enforcement in his last name. In the state of Missouri, in the state of Kansas, in Marion, in other parts of southern Illinois. I don't care who his people is. If they ain't God, they don't scare me. Ain't none above the law. Let me give you this here before I leave. I want some of y'all to remember this here in the case of Dolly Mapp versus the state of Ohio. The police and the law enforcement officials were so crooked in this case. When they got a search warrant and they went into Dolly Mapp's house, they violated all her rules. She went to the Ohio State Supreme Court. She had to go all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and they ruled in her favor. Look what they said in 1961. There is no war between the Constitution and common sense. Nothing can destroy a government more quickly than its failure to observe its own laws. See, they ain't observing their own laws. What detective would go tell somebody that my son was mentioning their name on his Facebook page and saying that he was being threatened or he was finna fight? What would they go tell this guy and then let him see the video? I'm gonna tell you what kind. A kind that didn't care about my son. But I want y'all to know, me and my family care about my son. Carbondale, y'all ain't heard the last of me. All of y'all that ask me, what do I want y'all to do? March as if it was your son. March just like you marched for George Floyd. March just like you marched for any other individual that done lost their life. And if y'all said I'm just doing this here because it's my son, you better take a real good look at my YouTube channel. Because one thing about it, I don't just do it for my son. I did it for anybody that needed help. I'm gonna check out here for right now, y'all. But I want y'all to know one thing. I believe that God is going to bring me through this all. I believe God going to bring me through it, y'all. I got faith. Justice for Bryan, y'all. If we can get justice for George Floyd and the rest of them, we can get justice for Bryan. When Bryan was hung, Bryan wasn't hung because he committed some crime. Bryan was hung because somebody knew that they can get away with something. But let me just say this here, y'all.